So the next pattern in our series is a small little soft hackle. I'm tying this on a curved hook. I add just a little bit of weight to this fly, and I'm using another whiting saddle. This off a Brahma hen saddle. And you can see the kind of real nice grayish tones to this particular saddle. It's got some speckling and just full of life. And so I like this a lot for my little soft hackle Callibaetis. This is a fly that I use very often stripped behind a woolly bugger. One of the things I find is fish tend to be attracted to the larger woolly bugger and follow it, and then spot the smaller Callibaetis mayfly, and they typically take the Callibaetis. We also use this a lot wind drifting on our area lakes. We'll throw out a wind sock and let the wind push us along at a very slow drift with an intermediate line. Excellent technique for kids particularly. And so we'll put on a little Callibaetis soft hackle and wind drift it. I remember some days up on East Lake with my young nephews just catching kokanee salmon and rainbow trout and brown trout one after the other on this particular pattern as we wind drifted off an area called the Hump in the lake. So real good little pattern. So let's move along to our soft hackle. I'm going to start this very much in the same way that I did the nymph. We're going to finish it slightly different, and I'm going to use that whiting Brahma saddle that I showed you a few minutes ago. So I'm going to start tying right at the head. Use my scissors to bend down and flatten that wire, and I've used the thread to begin proportioning this pattern. I want to reserve that area for the head. I'm going to need to tie my soft hackle in there, and I don't want to invade that space before I get there. So I've taken one of my Brahma hen feathers here, and I'm going to just grab a few barbs to create a nice sparse tail on this pattern. And I'll pre-trim it and tie that in place. Then I want to tie in my wire. I'm going to run through these next couple of steps fairly quickly because they mirror the nymph pattern that we tied. I'll go ahead and add the biot on this fly. Again with that opaque side facing forward and the translucent side facing backward to somewhat take advantage of the segmentation that a biot can offer. And again, that first wrap is going to fold that biot the opposite way. So now the opaque side is facing backward and the translucent side is facing forward. And we'll wrap that right up onto that little non-toxic lead. If I can get that to lie right. And I'll tie that off before I cross that biot underneath. I've tied it off right on top of the biot so I don't shave it off with this thread acting like a razor blade. And then I'm going to go ahead and rib this fly with my wire all the way up to the thorax position. You can see I'm using a Danville 6/0 flat wax thread here for this particular pattern in a tobacco brown. And I like this color. A lot of mayflies have that coppery tobacco brown colored eyes on them. And so this just adds a little bit of that character to the pattern. So let's tie the thorax. And I'll wind that all the way forward. So I've got a nice sparse, but that thorax is definitely there. So next, I'm going to prepare this hackle. Take my scissor or my hackle pliers and grip it in the hackle plier, and then I'll release it, and I'm going to cut a little tab end on there, and I'm going to tie in right at that tab end. And the reason I do that is that gives something for this thread to bite into. If you tie it into a blank stem or rachis on this feather, it will oftentimes slip on you. And so that gives this something to grab onto. Now I'm going to take all this material and I'm going to fold it backwards. Grab all the barbs and fold them, pull them all backward, and go ahead and wind just 2 wraps on this. So I'm going to bring that up, I'm going to cross that feather, and then I'm going to bring that back toward me. And why'd I do that? Basically, I'm trying to cross just the stem and not any of the barbs. I don't want to leave a messy head. And that gets a lot more important as we get into dry flies when we're working in very tight quarters up in that head area. Got 2 barbs I missed with that initial cut. So now let me clean up this head. And we'll tie a couple of whip finishes. So that's our little Callibaetis soft hackle. And I use this, as I mentioned, wind drifting quite a bit, especially with newer fly fishers that have challenges casting. Like if I've got enough wind, I can wind drift this, and they're fly fishing, but we're basically trolling. And so just to spin this around in the vise so you can see all sides of it. And so that's our little Callibaetis soft hackle. Excellent pattern. Catch a lot of fish on this. Kokanee salmon up in East Lake particularly like this pattern, and so we'll take a lot of kokanee on it. The next pattern in our series will be tying the bad haircut cripple, so tune into that video next. Thanks for watching.